Rumi, the great Sufi poet, once said, "Love is the water of life. Love is the whole thing. We are only pieces." And today I have the privilege of teaching the basics of cryptography through a love story. Meet Bob and Alice, two souls madly in love. Alice is always on the move, traveling for her sales job. Bob, on the other hand, is a technologist, a geek, a nerd, but also surprisingly a poet. When Alice is away, Bob misses her. To bridge the distance, he writes her love letters, beautiful, heartfelt poems, really. For some reasons, he would like to keep these letters private. No one but Alice should be able to read them. In this tutorial, we will help our lovebirds exchange their secret messages using different cryptographic techniques. But as in love and in life, things are never that simple. Challenges will arise, eavesdroppers, impostors, and even betrayals. And that's where we step in to protect their love, one encrypted message at a time. Chapter 1. Alice is away on a trip. And Bob would like to send a secret message to her. In plain English, we say secret message, but formally we say he intends to send an encrypted or a confidential message. Both of them pretty much mean the same thing. He has the love letter written on his computer and it needs to be transformed into an encrypted message. In computer science, when we say transformation, an algorithm is to be involved. As such, an algorithm is nothing but a sequence of steps you take to convert inputs into outputs. They can be very simple or highly sophisticated, depending on how the inputs are supposed to be transformed. And of course, we need a place to run this algorithm that transforms a clear message into an encrypted message. The software and computer that runs these types of algorithms are called crypto engines. They could be as simple as an app running on your desktop or mobile, or purpose-built devices designed and dedicated solely for running them. We have the digital love letter and the crypto engine that runs the algorithm, but we are missing one more ingredient. The second input is called a secret key. You can think of a key as a password. However, it is generally longer than passwords, and ideally no human beings should see them, not even the owner of the key. This is why it is a good idea for a secret key to be generated and stored inside the crypto engines. I forget to mention that the purpose-built crypto engines not only run algorithms but also provide secure storage to store the sensitive key material. In simple words, instead of storing the keys as files in your PC, you generate and store them inside the crypto engines. So let's make sure of that. And now the magic begins. Bob takes his love letter, sends it to the crypto engine. The algorithm runs in the encryption mode and out comes an encrypted document. I'm showing the encrypted version of the love letter in yellow color with a lock on the side, just to distinguish it from the original document. And so, Bob sends his encrypted message to Alice, maybe by email, maybe as a text. Now here is something interesting. Alice also has a crypto engine running the same encryption algorithm that Bob used, but there is a catch. To unlock Bob's message and read it in plain text, Alice needs one crucial thing: the secret key. Remember, the algorithm takes two inputs, the document and the secret key. Alice has the crypto engine, she has the algorithm, but without the key, Bob's words would remain a mystery. But how would Alice get that secret key is a challenging problem. Do you think he gave the secret key just before she left on a trip? Actually, Bob gave Alice the key a long time ago, back when they were still dating and living apart. Many moons ago, on a beautiful starlit night, they met for a coffee date. Between the sips of coffee and the stolen glances, Bob took out a small piece of paper, a post-it really, and slid it across the table to Alice. It wasn't just any note, it was the secret key. Alice looked at it, curious, and asked, "What is this?" She was amused and confused. Bob leaned in with a knowing smile, Trust me, one day this will be important. And that day is today. As you can see, she does have all the parts of the puzzle. She has the crypto engine, the shared secret key, and the encrypted document. And therefore, she sends the encrypted version to the crypto engine, runs the algorithm in the decryption mode, and out comes the clear version. There it is, Bob's poem in all its raw, heartfelt beauty. For a moment, the universe feels perfect. The stars are aligned and the love is in the air. Bob and Alice seem to be in their own little world, wrapped in the bliss of secret exchanges. But as in life and in cryptography, secrets have a way of surfacing. Our poetic, nerdy Bob, innocent as he may seem, has been keeping a secret. He has been cheating on Alice. Yes, our Alice, the beautiful, the trusting Alice. Bob has another woman in his life. Her name is Eve. And this fool, this absolute idiot, I must say, intends to send her love letters too. Encrypted, of course. Now we find ourselves caught in the middle of this mess, facing a moral dilemma. Should we even help Bob? Does a cheater deserve our expertise? But for the sake of computer science and with heavy hearts, I implore you to set aside our judgment and do what we must. And that brings us to our first big question. Should Bob use the same secret key he shared with Alice to encrypt his messages to Eve? Most of you probably guessed it. Bob needs a new secret key. Let's call this one the blue key. Why? Because if Bob reuses the same key he gave Alice, things could get messy. When Alice returns home and finds encrypted messages on his computer, she might get curious. And since she already has the key, she'll be able to decrypt them. And just like that, secrets wouldn't stay secret for long. I hate that we are helping him, but the intricacies of cryptography leaves us no choice. The knowledge is demanding sacrifice. But wait, how will Eve get the blue key? You know this idiot by now. He had gone on a coffee date with her as well, while Alice was on one of her trips. Again, he wrote the key on a post-it, just like he did with Alice. And this is how the love triangle looks now. We have three people, Bob, Alice and Eve. Bob has two secret keys in his crypto engine, the white one for Alice and the blue one for Eve. Let's talk about the algorithms. There are actually many of them. These algorithms are designed to transform clear messages into encrypted ones, making them unreadable without the right key. Some of the most well-known encryption algorithms include DES, triple DES, and AES. These algorithms, by the way, are not just invented overnight. They're carefully crafted by cryptographers and rigorously tested by security agencies. In the United States, this job falls to NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, while other countries have their own agencies that evaluate and recommend encryption standards. But encryption is never a one-sided game. There are hackers, some ethical, some not, who dedicate their time to breaking these algorithms, searching for weaknesses that could let them decrypt messages without the secret key. As of 2025, AES, or Advanced Encryption Standard, remains the recommended one by NIST, and so far it has not been broken. The algorithm we have used so far, where Bob and Alice and Eve rely on the same shared secret key, falls under the branch of cryptography called Symmetric cryptography. By the way, Bob's not just talking to Alice and Eve. He's on LinkedIn too. And whenever he communicates with others, he makes them use the secret key as well. And imagine if he talks to 1,000 people, he would be juggling 1,000 keys. It's starting to sound like a lot of work, right? In symmetric cryptography, the same key is used for both encryption and decryption. This comes with a major challenge: securely sharing the secret key in the first place. And then, what if he runs out of space in his crypto engine? And clearly going on dates and or meeting people just to give the key is not only not secure, but also very costly. Okay. I am sure there are skeptical faces out there. Runs out of space for keys, you are thinking? My iPhone has 256 GB. We are living in the AI age. Storage is practically free. I get it. But here is the thing, we are talking about secure keys, the kind you really don't want falling into the wrong hands. And the devices built to protect those keys are often resource constrained. These purpose built secure crypto engines are incredibly secure, but they prioritize security over vast storage. One common example is a smart card. Take a look at your wallet. That banking card you have, the little chip is a smart card. The SIM card in your mobile phone, smart card. The access card you use to get into the office, smart card. Some of you might even use them to log into your computers. So while your phone might hold thousands of cat videos, smart cards are designed for a single crucial purpose, keeping secrets and running algorithms securely. And when Bob's trying to juggle shared secret keys with thousands of LinkedIn connections, especially if he's using smart card, running out of space isn't just a theoretical concern. It's a very real problem that requires a practical solution. So that's the challenge we are facing. Bob's running out of space from his crypto engine. But before we dive into solutions, I have some complicated news. Remember how I said love is never perfect? Well, Alice found out about Bob's extensive LinkedIn network. And yes, our lovebirds are broken up. But as anyone who has been through a breakup knows, it's never quite that simple. Sometimes those subconscious connections linger. Love in some form persists. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on your perspective, Alice, in her infinite kindness, has agreed to remain friends with Bob. And that gives us a new opportunity. In this chapter, we will explore a simple but powerful cryptographic technique called key diversification. Key diversification removes Bob's need to store individual keys while still allowing him to use unique keys with each of his, well, quote and unquote friends. Once I taught and enabled Bob about this new technique, a new algorithm, and made sure that his crypto engine is capable of running it, he decides to meet Alice again. Just two friends meeting, nothing more to it really. Bob asks Alice to give him a number unique to her, and that she should remember this number from now onwards. This number does not need to be a secret or stored in a secure place. In this illustration, that number is 3B021450. Think of it as Alice's ID number, but the one that does not warrant any secure storage. Bob now supplies this ID number to the crypto engine as an input and runs an algorithm called key diversification. The inputs to this algorithm are the ID number and the shared secret key itself. Remember that secret key of Bob is already stored in the crypto engine. The outcome of running this algorithm is another shared key of the same length as the original key. We can say that we have minted a new key, the one shown in the orange color, using a unique number and the secret key of Bob. I must also tell you that it is a one-way road. That is, you can systematically go from original white key to the orange key, but you can never go back. For example, if you take the orange key and the ID number, there is no way to get back the white key. This is an important detail about key diversification algorithms, the one that makes them secure. Bob hands over the orange key to Alice, and she stores that in her crypto engine. We will now run the steps when Bob wants to send a friendly, no, not love poems anymore, sorry, letter to her but encrypt it. He will ask her to give the same number as she gave to him when they met for a coffee, or perhaps he has already stored it in one of his files. Remember, this number does not need to be stored in the crypto engine. He gives the ID number to the crypto engine. The shared key already resides in the crypto engine, performs the key diversification, puts the orange key in the temporary storage of his crypto engine. And this is the key that will be used for encryption now. and then uses it to encrypt the letter. Since Alice has the orange key, she would be able to decrypt it. In this scheme, as you observed, we have an additional step. Systematically, Bob must generate the orange key using the ID number of Alice and then use it as the input to the encryption algorithm. This additional step helps him not to worry about the space, and yet he gets to use different keys with different people. This scheme requires that everyone he interacts with must have the unique ID associated with them. Again, one more time emphasis, the ID does not need to be kept private. Very much like other algorithms in cryptography, there is a recommended one from the NIST. I understand what you guys are thinking. It seems a bit contrived so far. And you're not wrong, because so far I have used Bob and Alice, the human beings, to illustrate the example. In many situations, the two devices, the two computing devices, the two entities also have the need to securely exchange messages. Let me give you a real world example from the company I work at. If you ever looked closely at your access badge or paid attention to the card readers on the walls at your office, you might have noticed the label HID. In this scenario, think for Bob as the reader, while Alice and Eve are the access cards. When you tap your card on the reader, you hear a beep and see the LED blink. But behind the scenes, a fast and a complex cryptographic exchange is happening. I must say that one of the biggest challenges in computer science is balancing strong security with seamless user experience. In this case, I feel very proud to say that we have solved it. At HID, we engineer solutions at both the hardware and software level to make this work efficiently. Here is what is happening. In our factories, we inject a master key into the reader and generate diversified keys for the access cards. Each card has a unique serial number, which allows us to derive a different key for each one. This means the reader does not need to store the keys for every employee or for every access card, a huge advantage, especially for resource-constrained device like reader. Even if the reader had infinite storage, this approach would still be the smarter choice. Otherwise, think every time a new employee joins, you would have to go update every single reader in the building, an impractical and inefficient solution. I hope this real-world example helps you appreciate just how powerful key diversification is. While key diversification helped us solve the storage problem, we are still left with the biggest challenge: securely exchanging secret keys. In the world of cryptography, some of the best digital solutions come from observing and adapting concepts from the physical world. So let's go through a thought experiment, one that might inspire us to solve this problem in a completely new way. By the way, they are still broken up, but remain good friends. Bob has learned a new technique, and he wants to first exercise that in the physical world. He's asking Alice to go to Walmart and buy a lock and a key. He insisted her to buy a padlock that can be locked by just pressing the U-shaped shackle and can be unlocked by using the key that belongs to that padlock. And like before, he would like to send a secret message. This time around, he asks Alice to send her unlocked padlock. She then ships it to him via postal service. Bob goes to a store as well and buys a very solid box. He puts the document in the box, put the lock on it, presses the U-shaped shackle down, and now even he cannot open it because remember, the key resides with Alice. He then ships the locked box that has the letter in it to Alice via the postal service. Alice uses her key to unlock the lock and gets the letter. It was a birthday card by Bob. You see, this idiot is simply crazy. Sending birthday cards encrypted? Who does that? I like to believe that something bigger is brewing in his mind, and we just don't understand it yet. I hope you start to see where we are going with this analogy. What if we had digital versions of lock and key, a pair. In symmetric cryptography, we had one object, that is the shared secret key. Here we have two objects, one is a lock and another is a key. Before we go any further, I owe you an apology because what I'm about to say will probably confuse you. You see, engineers and scientists have created some of the most brilliant things in this world. But when it comes to naming things, well, let's just say we are not always the best at it. Sometimes we use multiple terms for the same concept. Other times we pick names that make learning way harder than it needs to be. In the digital version, the unlocked lock is also called a key. The blue key you see here. Yes, a lock that looks like a key. Actually, the real secret key is called the private key and the unlocked lock is called public key. I know it is confusing, but at least the word public in front of the key seems to imply that one can share it with others. It is public. It's not meant to be a secret. I hope at least this helps. But simply having an analogy and giving names to these keys isn't enough. We need a mathematical foundation to actually generate such a pair. In symmetric cryptography, the key is just a random string. There is nothing special about it. But here the two keys are not just random, they are mathematically linked with each other. This means we need an algorithm that can generate a pair of keys where one can lock or encrypt a message done using the public key and other can unlock or decrypt it done by the private key. Even though this tutorial is not meant to dive into the underlying mathematics, here are some mathematical foundations that enables this magic. The modular arithmetic, also known as clock arithmetic, difficulty in factoring big numbers into prime numbers, and discrete log computation. I intend to follow up this tutorial with a series where I will dive into the mathematics with not only just the intuition but also simple to understand numerical examples. Some of the famous algorithms that use the concept of public and private keys are RSA and ECC. Since in this scheme one key is used to encrypt and other is used to decrypt, there is an asymmetry. Hence, this branch of cryptography is called asymmetric cryptography. Let's very quickly run through the steps. The idiot Bob wants to send a secret message to Alice and requests her to send her public key. Since this is public key, no problem, she can send it by email. No need to meet in person or no UPS required. However, it is a good practice to confirm it by calling her over the phone and making sure it came from correct email address. He then sends the public key of Alice and the message to his crypto engine, gets an encrypted document as a result, sends it via email to her. She has the private key in the crypto engine and therefore able to decrypt it. As you could have predicted, he asked Eve to have the similar setup of public and private key pair. By the way, since public keys are public, there is no need to store them in the crypto engine. And there is no need to request them every time he needs to send a message. He can very well store them on his PC. So the public keys are stored as files on the PC instead of storing them in the crypto engine. Bob has his own public-private key pair as well. This way, if someone wants to send him the encrypted message, they would ask him to share Bob's public key. Now that we have explored asymmetric cryptography, you might be wondering, does this make symmetric cryptography obsolete? The answer is no. You see, asymmetric cryptography elegantly solves the key exchange problem with its public and private key system. However, when it comes to performing actual encryption, it is not as fast as symmetric algorithm like AES. It is also not as secure as AES when encrypting large amounts of data. It's good for small amount of data, but if your document is very big, it is actually not good. So not fast and not secure. And so if security cannot be compromised, how do we get the best of both worlds? By using them together, let me show you how encryption is done in practice by combining both asymmetric and symmetric cryptography. In the setup here, you can see that Bob has a bunch of public keys, including that of Alice. He then generates a temporary secret key. If you remember from chapter 1, we had generated such a key for symmetric cryptography. The difference here is that we will not permanently store it. It is of one-time use only. It is only meant to encrypt the current document. Bob sends the document and the temporary secret key to the crypto engine. The symmetric algorithm like AES in encryption mode. So far, everything is exactly the same as that of chapter 1. But instead of sending the encrypted document to Alice, we will hold on to it for the moment. Now we will take the temporary secret key and consider it to be the document. We will use the public key of Alice and asymmetric algorithm such as RSA to encrypt the temporary secret key. I have illustrated the output as the key that has a lock at the bottom right. Now Bob sends both of them to Alice, that is the encrypted document and the encrypted temporary secret key. Alice runs the steps in reverse. She takes the encrypted temporary secret key as the input, uses her private key, runs the asymmetric algorithm in decryption mode and obtains the temporary secret key. She then puts the temporary secret key in her crypto engine, uses the encrypted document as the input, and runs the symmetric algorithm in decryption mode to get the clear document. The temporary secret key is destroyed as it will never be used again. Pretty clever way of using both types of cryptography to maintain the security and the speed of the process. At this point, everything seems to be falling into place. We have solved the storage problem and the key exchange is no longer an issue. After all, we are only exchanging public keys, so there is no secrecy concern here. But this scheme does introduce a whole new set of challenges. How does Bob know which public key actually belongs to Alice? Does he keep an Excel sheet of everyone's public key? That does not sound very practical. And what if Alice, being extra cautious about security, wants to set an expiration date on her key pair, say a month or even just a week? How would that be managed? Clearly, we need a better system for handling public keys, and that's exactly what we will explore next. Chapter 4. Let's help Bob, Alice, and Eve do some bookkeeping. In the digital world, bookkeeping means managing public keys in a standardized way so that different systems can trust and communicate with each other seamlessly. Let's start with a simple yet powerful idea: adding metadata to the public keys. Metadata is just a fancy way of saying information about data. It's the extra details that help describe something, and in this case, it helps us manage public keys more effectively. Importantly, metadata is not secret. It's not meant to be a secret. It's meant to be public and accessible. So what kind of information can we add? Perhaps the name of the person the key belongs to. An email address, which is more specific than just the name. Not just the expiration date, but also when the key was created. By adding this metadata, we are taking the first step towards organizing and standardizing how public keys are used. Now, what happens when we bundle this metadata together with public key? We get something incredibly useful: a digital certificate. A digital certificate is essentially a public key with an identity tag, making it easier to verify who the key belongs to and whether it is still valid. This is the foundation of how trust is established in secure communication. There are specialized tools that not only generate public-private key pairs but also create digital certificates by collecting the necessary information from you. These certificates follow a standardized format and a structure, ensuring that any software can easily generate, read, and process them across different systems. So now, instead of storing raw public keys, we store certificates, which contain both the public key and its associated metadata for better organization and trust management. Before we move forward, I have some wonderful news for you. Bob has mended his ways. The letters he has been writing were the words of remorse and reflection, and our kind-hearted Alice, she has forgiven him. Because love, real love, is not about perfection. It is about growth, about understanding that we all are flawed and sometimes fail the people we cherish the most. And so, despite everything, they are back together. But I must also be the bearer of bad news. You see, love and betrayal are the two sides of the same coin. Bob's heart may have found its way back to Alice, but in doing so, he has left someone else behind. It's Eve who now feels betrayed. And she's not the one to walk away quietly. She seeks revenge. Do you want to see the damage she can do? That our certificate has two components, the metadata and the public key. Eve could use Alice's metadata with her public key. This reworked certificate to a human being will look like as if it belongs to Alice. But anything encrypted by the public key in this certificate can be decrypted by Eve's private key because she changed the public key to that of hers. All she has to do is to replace Alice's original certificate with this certificate and then spy on messages. Based on this, we acknowledge that our certificate is missing authenticity. But how does one achieve authenticity? That's a way deeper question. An example from the physical world again. Here is a paper certificate. Now you can buy as many of them or even print them yourself. Those certificates would not be authentic. A certificate becomes authentic only when it is signed by some authority. For example, dean of your college would sign the certificate and only then it becomes legit. One of the other interesting things we can do with the public and private key system is to have digital signatures. Now, many of you must have used DocuSign or some other service to sign the documents online. Those systems are called e-signatures. They are not cryptographically backed. It is unfortunate that those services quite often call them digital signatures, something I really do not appreciate. Anyways, earlier we used public key to encrypt document and private key to decrypt it. The process of digital signature creation uses the private key to generate the signature and the public key is used to verify the signature. Let me walk you through it to demonstrate the signing of certificates. You take a document, in this case it will be the certificate. Using the private key and using the crypto engine, we generate the signature. This signature is also sometimes called a fingerprint. The signature on the certificate can be verified using the public key. So, unlike encryption, it works in an reverse way or an opposite way where the private key is being used to generate the signature and the public key is being used to verify it. So we can say that an authentic certificate consists of three components: the metadata, the public key, and the digital signature computed on the metadata and the public key. However, up to this point, Alice has been using her own private key to sign the certificate. This type of a certificate is called a self-signed certificate. Now, from a cryptographic standpoint, the certificate is tamper-proof. Even if a single bit is altered, the signature would become invalid. But let's take a step back and compare this to the real world. If you print a certificate and sign it yourself, you might feel proud. You might even give yourself a pat on the back. Why not? But that certificate does not mean much to anyone else unless they already recognize and trust you as an authority. When it comes to computing systems where trust isn't based on relationships but on verifiable security, using self-signed certificates opens the door to a range of attacks. Chapter 5. Eve is out for revenge. Eve is not just upset. She is determined to cause chaos. In this chapter, we will see how she can still create problems, even when the certificates are digitally signed. So far, the digital signature on a certificate has been created using the private key of the person it belongs to. But what if that's not enough? What if Eve can exploit this system to her advantage? Let's go through the flow. Bob requests Alice to give her signed digital certificate. But imagine this. Eve has hacked the system, the network. Bob's request for Alice's certificate never really reached her. Instead, Eve intercepted it. She forges a new certificate, keeping all of Alice's metadata exactly the same, but still used her own public key. And to make it look legit, she signs it with her own private key. Cryptographically, the certificate checks out, but it's a trap. This type of attack is called man-in-the-middle attack. Though in our case, maybe we should call it the woman-in-the-middle attack. This image of the browser, it's raising a red flag. You might think you are talking to a legit system because the domain name perhaps looks correct to you. But behind the scenes, a man-in-the-middle attack is in progress. The browser is warning you because something is off. The certificate isn't trusted. It may be cryptographically valid, but it is not trusted. And that's exactly the danger of self-signed certificates. The final piece of the puzzle we are missing is the notion of a trust anchor. What if Alice's certificate wasn't signed by herself, but by a trusted authority instead? Alice would submit her metadata and the public key to this entity, a third party, a recognized third party, and in return, they would issue a certificate signed with their private key. This approach mirrors the real world much more accurately, where trust comes not from self-assertion, but from a recognized authority. These authorities are called certificate authorities. Some of the famous ones are VeriSign, Thwate, and Trust. Instead of trusting individual certificates, we trust CAs that issue them. This trust happens because your computer or browsers come loaded with their certificate and they have been marked as trusted. There can be, by the way, a chain of certificate authorities where the lower level CAs are verified by the higher levels, the more authoritative ones. At the top sits the root CA, which serves as the ultimate trust anchor, forming a hierarchy of trust. In simple words, the whole infrastructure could involve many parties. They perform background checks of different types depending on the type of the certificate being issued, and also have a means to revoke them. This infrastructure has a name. It is called Public Key Infrastructure, or PKI for short. We covered a lot of ground in this one tutorial, but the story is far from over. Eve hasn't given up yet. With the rise of quantum computers, some of today's cryptographic algorithms could be broken. A global effort is underway to transition to post-quantum cryptography, bringing new algorithms and revised key size recommendations to ensure security in the quantum era. At work, when I gave this talk last year, some engineers were curious about the underlying mathematics behind these algorithms. And the underlying mathematics and the techniques are just unbelievably beautiful. So I'll be publishing more on that soon. If you have made this far, thank you for sticking with me and helping our lovebirds navigate their cryptographic adventures. I hope you learned something new, something different. Wishing you the best in your learning journey. Peace to all, love to all, be happy and kind. Thank you. Bye-bye.